Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Legal Aid New South Wales and Revenue New South Wales WDO Nuts and Bolts webinar. My name's Kirsty Harrison. I work as a lawyer with the WDO service at Legal Aid New South Wales. I'm here with Tanya Osland and Lauren Judge from the Revenue New South Wales Debt Resolution team. Good morning, Tanya.
Hi Kirsty, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Really excited about the nuts and bolts.
Brilliant, and we've got Lauren. Good morning again.
Good morning, everyone.
And Lauren's sitting by waiting to answer all of your questions. So don't wait to the end, you send your questions through whenever you like. We are broadcasting this webinar today from Parramatta, so I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on whose land we are broadcasting this session from today. Okay, just in terms of structure, the webinar will be about 45 minutes in total. As I said, if you have any questions, then please send them through as we go. In 2018, we are having these webinars monthly, plus extra topics once a quarter. So keep an eye on the Legal Aid New South Wales webinar page to find out when they are next scheduled. Or you can send an email to cle@legalaid.nsw.gov.au and ask to be signed up to our Law for Community Workers alert that comes out every 2 months with information about our webinars, workshops and podcasts. So don't worry if you didn't grab that email address, we'll give all those details out to you at the end. So some of you may have just attended our WDO Administration Masterclass webinar. So if so, welcome back. We'll be covering a few things in this webinar that we covered at the start of the earlier webinar, so apologies now for any duplication. And then we will get into some more detail about eligibility and activities based on the frequently asked questions that both the hotline and legal aid lawyers get from sponsors. So just bringing up the questions and control panel screen. So to ask us questions, if you look at your control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, is a box where you can type in questions. So I can hear Lauren tapping away, so I can tell that some of you have found that box, so brilliant. Sometimes through the webinar, your control panel might shrink. So to expand it again, there is a red button with an arrow in it. If you cannot see the full control panel now, or this control panel shrinks, then you can click on that red button to make it reappear. You can type in questions for us during the webinar and we'll respond to individuals as they come in. Some of your questions we may leave until the end though, if we think that everyone will benefit from hearing the answer, or if we get many people asking the same questions. We will be sending a frequently asked question sheet out after the webinar, which will capture all of the questions that you asked. If you're having trouble hearing us via the internet link, then you do have the option to telephone into the webinar to listen via your phone while you follow the presentation online, and details of the phone number and access details are in the control panel. Now we'll also be doing some polls throughout the webinar. So to test the poll function and to make sure that you can hear us, we will do a quick poll now. So I will open that up. The question is, what is your experience with the Work and Development Order scheme? So I know nothing about WDOs. My service is a WDO provider, but I haven't supported anyone yet. I've done between 1 to 15 WDOs, or I've had heaps of experience and I should be running today's webinar. Okay, so just give you one more moment to answer those. Okay, I think that's pretty much everyone. Okay, so I'll share the results. So 7% know nothing about WDO, so I really hope that after today's session you'll be in another category, maybe that I've had heaps of experience, I'm an ace at it category. 37% say my service is WDO provider, haven't supported anyone yet. 42% have done between 1 to 15 WDOs, and 15 have heaps of experience. Okay, so After the webinar, you'll receive a survey, and it will help us if you can give us your feedback on today's session. An hour after the webinar, you will receive an email with links to where you can get some further help and information. So before we start, let's quickly set the scene about what this webinar will cover and what you will hopefully be able to take away from the session to help with your work as WDO sponsors. So today we're going to cover the following topics: eligibility records, activity records, audits, resources, some contacts for help, and you'll see this beautiful new WDO design which is on the new legal aid resources to promote the service to clients. You can order some free copies of our resources through the Legal Aid New South Wales publications page on our website. Okay, so work and development orders. The WDO scheme has achieved some amazing results since it was first piloted in 2009 and then rolled out from 2011. We recently learned that over $106 million of fines debt has been cleared by the WDO service. So a big shout out to all you WDO sponsors who work with people every day to clear their fines debt. That's absolutely incredible number, isn't it, Tanya?
Yes, it is.
Just
definitely
blows my mind. So the Work and Development Order Service is delivered by 3 organisations. So Revenue New South Wales, who manage unpaid fines in New South Wales and issue WDOs. So you can contact the hotline on 1300 478 879 for help with the online self-service portal. And they also process new WDO sponsors and variation applications. The Department of Justice, another partner, so they administer the WDO scheme, including overseeing the WDO guidelines and any audits, and Legal Aid New South Wales, and we have 6 WDO teams across the state. We promote access to WDOs across New South Wales and provide sponsor training, develop WDO resources, and provide a specialist service for clients with unpaid fines. You can find the details of your closest WDO team on the Legal Aid website. So if you just go to the entry page of Legal Aid New South Wales website, just search WDO in the search field. Okay, so who can do a WDO? So there are 6 eligibility criteria for a WDO listed on the portal. In recent guideline changes, young people under the age of 18 or juveniles was added as a new eligibility criteria under acute economic hardship. So, however, the sponsor must be satisfied that the young person is unable to pay the fine and does not possess substantial assets for them to be eligible to participate in the scheme. The other eligibility criteria are acute economic hardship, homelessness, mental illness, intellectual disability or cognitive impairment, and serious addiction to drugs, alcohol, or other volatile substances. So you must retain proof that your client is eligible to do a work and development order. So clause 5 of the WDO guidelines 2017 state that the sponsor must also retain proof of identity or other documentation establishing the identity of the applicant. So proof of identification might include a copy of the applicant's driver's license, their birth certificate, or other photographic identification. They must also have evidence that a working with children check has been undertaken for the applicant if the proposed activities involved child-related activities, or if the person for the person responsible for the supervision of proposed activities under the WDO, if the person doing the WDO is under the age of 18, so under that new criteria. And proof of eligibility must also be kept in accordance with these guidelines. So we recommend that you use the client details form developed by Legal Aid New South Wales to assist you to gather the information for the self-service portal to help meet your proof obligations for your client's eligibility. So this is available as a handout in PDF format, which you can download now as we go through it. So I might give you a moment just to do that. So if you go down onto your control panel under handouts, the client details form is there. If not, it's up on the screen for you. So all sections that are marked with an asterisk indicate that the Revenue New South Wales self-service portal requires this information to be entered when setting up the WDO. This form prompts you to gather the information you need to keep on your file and includes clients' personal details, WDO eligibility and fine details, WDO activity details, including the type of activity and whether it will be provided by your organisation in-house or on a referral basis, how many hours of attendance per week and per month. Now, page 2 is where you can record the agreement between the WDO sponsor and the client on certain aspects of the WDO, including what activities are agreed upon and the cutout rates for each activity. If your client is engaging in medical or mental health treatment, drug and alcohol treatment, or a mentoring program, it is here where you record what the plan is for your client and what will constitute full engagement or full compliance. You and your client will then sign and date the agreement. It is important to note that the WDO cannot be backdated. Hours can be counted from when the WDO is entered in the self-service portal. So that's right, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, so now what we'll do, we'll open up another poll. And Tanya, I'll need your help with this one. So who is responsible for keeping proof of a client's eligibility for a WDO? So I'll give you all a moment to answer that. Okay, I think most people have voted. Okay, I'll close that off and I'll share the results. Tanya, what's the answer?
The answer is the sponsor. A sponsor is required to retain proof of a client's eligibility for a WDO. And we can see that 98% of the survey, so everybody basically got it right.
Okay, brilliant. And maybe those 2% that didn't, they're the ones that are just starting out doing WDOs.
Exactly.
So they wouldn't know necessarily.
Exactly.
Okay. So we will move on to eligibility. So what types of proof do we need? What proof is required to establish your client's eligibility for a WDO? So if your client is eligible because they fall under the category of acute economic hardship, then you must keep evidence to that effect. If your client is eligible because they are on a Centrelink benefit, then you should keep a copy of the income statement. A copy of their pension card is not enough. The income statement must be dated within 4 weeks from the date that you submit the application. If your client's income is below the income threshold or they have no access to income, then you'll need to obtain and keep copies of evidence of household income. So that might include pay slips or bank statements. These must be dated from within 3 months of the date of the application. If the client has dependents and because of this their income falls within the income threshold, then you must keep evidence to this effect. So this can include a copy of the client's Medicare card, birth certificates, fax documentation, or Centrelink documents. If the client claims to pay child support, the sponsor must also keep documentary evidence of these payments. If the person does not have access to household income because of financial abuse, or maybe they're a domestic violence victim, Tanya, then the sponsor must also keep some documentary evidence to this effect. So a statement from police or their health practitioner, family and community services, a counsellor and other social welfare groups would be sufficient, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Okay, so the portal Centrelink benefit type. So when a client is eligible under acute financial hardship, you'll be asked to enter the client's Centrelink reference number. You will then be asked to identify which benefit, as you can see from this screen. The new benefits that have been added to this list are AUStudy and ABStudy. Now, just a brief note that the Department of Veteran Affairs benefits is listed below the other benefit types as it's an eligible benefit, but it's not paid directly by Centrelink. So that's just why it's listed separately there. Okay, homelessness. So where eligibility for a WDO is claimed on the grounds of homelessness, the sponsor must keep a letter or other documentation from either the applicant's lawyer, specialist service provider or caseworker, or maybe a government agency or non-government organisation that has experience working with people experiencing homelessness. So that might include places like juvenile justice, corrective services, trustee and guardian, or FACS. And that document must clearly explain the applicant's current living arrangements, the types of homelessness or the type of homelessness that the applicant is experiencing, and how long the applicant has been homeless. Any supporting documentation should be dated within 3 months prior to the date of application. Where eligibility for a WDO is claimed on the grounds of mental illness, the sponsor must keep a letter or other documentation from the applicant's treating doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, or mental health nurse, or a government agency or a non-government organisation that have professionals qualified to make a mental health assessment. So that could include, for example, juvenile justice, corrective services, trustee and guardian, FACS, or Centrelink if the applicant is in receipt of a full or partial disability pension. Now, the supporting documentation should be no older than 6 months prior to the date of the application, and it should explain the diagnosis, including the nature, severity and effects of the illness or condition, and how long the applicant has had the illness or condition for. So examples of this documentation could include case notes, medical certificates, evidence of financial distress, or a letter of support from a person or agency that supplied the documents which confirm the proof of eligibility. Okay, intellectual disability and cognitive impairment. So where eligibility for a WDO is on these grounds, the sponsor must keep one of the following. If the applicant is in receipt of a full or partial disability support pension, a job capacity assessment or other report from Centrelink describing the applicant's disability or impairment, or if the applicant has been declared eligible for the services of ageing, disability and home care or ADIC, then proof of this declaration, or another letter from any of the following which describes the person's disability or impairment. So that's the applicant's GP, or the applicant's school teacher or principal, or an officer in the Department of Education and Communities, a government agency or non-government organisation that have experience working with people with intellectual disabilities or cognitive impairment. So again, juvenile justice, corrective services, trustee and guardian, or FACS, or a disability employment service provider. And examples of this documentation include case notes, medical certificates, evidence of financial distress, or a letter from support from the person or agency that supplied the documents confirming proof of that eligibility. Serious addiction to drugs, alcohol, or volatile substances. So it's just important to note that if your client is eligible only because they have a serious addiction to drugs, alcohol, or volatile substances, then they can only do alcohol or other drug treatment as the activity. So it has to address that criteria. Where eligibility is claimed on the ground on this ground, then the sponsor must keep a letter or other documentation from one of the following. So the applicant's treating doctor, psychiatrist or psychologist, or a mental health nurse, or a nurse working in the field of drug and alcohol addiction, or social worker, drug and alcohol caseworker or counsellor, a youth service caseworker or counsellor, a residential or an outpatient rehab service provider, or a government agency or a non-government organisation with expertise in working with people with serious addiction to drugs, alcohol or volatile substances. So that could include, again, juvenile justice, corrective services, trustee and guardian, FACS, and supporting documentation, again, should be no older than 6 months prior to the date of the application, and it should explain the nature, severity and effects of the addiction and how long the applicant has had the addiction for. So some examples of this documentation could include case notes, medical certificates, evidence of financial distress, or a letter of support from the person or agency, again, that supplied the documents confirming the proof of eligibility. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll work through some of these issues with some case studies. So these will cover eligibility, activities, and record keeping. So Tanya, I'm going to need your help with these. So everyone meet Silvia. Silvia has parking fines of $1,000 from the police. These are from staying too long in front of the school and dropping off her kids. She's newly arrived in Australia and has no income to pay the fines. Her husband works casually and they can't afford the fines. How should you determine her eligibility to do a WDO?
So you would refer to the WDO Guidelines 2017 on page 12 and use the household income to determine the eligibility. Kirsty, in terms of kind of like record keeping, a sponsor would need to keep a copy of Silvia's identification documents and bank statements. Also, copies of her husband's pay slips. This will establish that the income falls below the income threshold table, sitting there on page 12.
Brilliant. Okay, now Robert is our next case study, and that's going to be about entering activities in a client activity report. So Robert is seeing you for his PTSD, and he has fines from travelling on the train without his concession card. Robert is a veteran. Robert has a 30-minute train trip and an hour appointment with you. After each session, you spend about 30 minutes writing up his notes and recording details in the WDO portal, as you only see him once a month. What hours should you enter? Now, Tanya, sponsors ask this question all the time.
Yes, we do. We get this asked a lot on the hotline. So the WDO, it's always about whether rounding up or do you round down. Okay, so in this instance, you cannot include the travel time, and Revenue New South Wales does not give half hours. So in Robert's case, the appointment is for 1 hour, so 1 hour should be recorded. In general terms, though, if a client attends over a 30-minute appointment, you would round up to the hour, and if attending less than 30 minutes, the time cannot be included.
Okay. Okay, so activities and what types of proof. So as we discussed earlier, a person can undertake one or more of the following activities to satisfy their fines debt under a WDO. So unpaid work with or on behalf of an approved organisation, medical or mental health treatment in accordance with a health practitioner's treatment plan, educational, vocational or life skills course, financial or other counselling, drug or alcohol treatment, or a mentoring program. Now, it's just important to note that mentoring is the option of mentoring is only available if the person is under 25 years of age. If a person is eligible for a WDO solely on the ground that they have a serious addiction to drugs, alcohol, or volatile substances, he or she must undertake drug or alcohol treatment and or counselling as part of their WDO. Now, we have repeated this a couple of times. Maybe it's because there's going to be a question on this later, Tanya.
Could be.
Okay, now a person can work off up to $1,000 a month off their fines debt. So that's the maximum. It is the responsibility of the sponsor to ensure that the activities proposed to be undertaken in a WDO are suitable and appropriate for the client. So Tanya will now take us through the types of proof that you could collect for different types of activities and some examples of suitable activities for each criteria.
Lovely. So thanks, Kirsty. So for unpaid work or volunteering, is the cutout rate is $30 per hour. Okay, up to a maximum of $1,000 per month. Now, the voluntary work can include assisting at a charity store or recycling service. They could be a kitchen hand, serving or delivering meals to the homeless or the elderly, or undertaking administrative duties. So just be mindful, if an activity isn't listed on the self-service portal when you create the application, you can tick other and give a description of the voluntary work. But note, when you select other, this will result in the WDO being reviewed by Revenue New South Wales prior to the WDO opening. Okay, so the next one is Educational, Vocational and Life Skills course. This is done at $50 per hour up to a maximum of $1,000 per month. So for educational, it could be undertaken at TAFE and university. This also includes courses undertaken or through a job service provider, as long as the activity is in addition to any Centrelink obligations. Other activities could include literacy and numeracy training, computer training. Under vocational activities could include cookery or tenancy survival programs. And under your life skills course, that could also include positive parenting program, anger management, and independent living skills. And also just remember, if you tick other, okay, if the activity isn't listed on the self-service portal and you tick other, you must give a description of the course. But note, the result will be, the WDO will be reviewed by Revenue South Wales prior to the WDO opening. Okay. So the next one is financial and other counselling. This can include case management. Now this activity is done at $50 per hour and remember up to a maximum of $1,000 per month. So the financial could include budgeting or financial education. So other counselling, including case management, could include counselling and case management. Just again, remember, if you tick other, if the activity isn't listed and you tick other on the portal when creating the application, this will be reviewed by Revenue New South Wales prior to the WDO opening. So we've just given an example here on what you will see on the self-service portal, and this is displayed for financial and other counselling. So just remember, if the activity isn't listed on the self-service portal when creating the application, you can tick other and give the description. Okay, but just note again that it will be reviewed by our office prior to opening. Okay, the next one is medical or mental health treatment. So this is done at a full compliance rate, okay, and this is provided by organisations as well as individual health practitioners. Okay, so it is up to a compliance rate of the $1,000 per month for full participation. So this could include medical review, disability case management, psychiatric appointments, counselling, example gambling disorders, medication, residential and community treatment orders. Also treatment undertaken in a mental health facility or in the community under the Mental Health Act 2007, as well as treatment undertaken in accordance with Section 32 of the Mental Health Forensic Provisions Act 1990 can be counted. Again, if the activity isn't listed on the portal when creating the application and you tick other, you must give a full description of what the treatment is. And again, note that it will be reviewed by our office prior to opening.
We do get that question quite a lot, Tanya, about clients that are receiving treatment under Section 32, because there is that general rule that anything that is court ordered can't be used or can't be counted towards a WDO. But I always try and think of it in my mind as a Section 32 is a diversionary program. So
merit.
It's, yes, same with merit. So it's a diversion away from the normal process. So I always, in my mind, that's how I separate.
And if people are unsure, the staff at the hotline are brilliant. So just give us a call.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or again, local, WDO, or WDO service. Yeah, absolutely.
So our next one is drug and alcohol treatment provided by organisations and now individual health practitioners. Again, it's a compliance rate of the $1,000 for full participation per month. Now, this could include residential, drug and alcohol treatment, smart recovery, counselling, medication. And again, if the activity isn't listed on the portal when creating the application and you tick other, give the description. And also, remember when you do tick other, it will be reviewed by our office prior to opening. All right, then we move on to mentoring for young people. Okay, again, this is done at a compliance rate of $1,000 per month for full participation. Now, mentoring could be a mentoring program or attendance at a case management meeting with their case manager or other case managers can be included. Also, if you tick other, remember, it won't open, okay, until our office has reviewed it.
Okay, so now we're going to do our last poll for the webinar. So I'll just open that up. And I think you might all know the answer to this one. Now, if your client is eligible for a WDO because they have a serious addiction to alcohol, drugs, or other volatile substances, what activities can they do under the WDO? So financial counselling, medical or mental health treatment, drug and alcohol treatment, or any and all of the above. Okay, so it's just collecting all your responses. I'll give you another moment to vote. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of correct answers, Tanya. Okay.
It's looking great.
It's looking good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's looking really good.
Okay, all right, I'll close that off and I'll share those results. Okay, so the correct answer is
drug and alcohol treatment, and it looks like 77% have agreed with us, so that is fantastic.
Brilliant. Okay.
So now let's move on to what if I'm audited?
Uh-oh. I'm sure that word gets everyone's spine chilling.
and don't be. Okay, so when you are approved, you agree to participate in the audits. So what records do they want? Is this a breach of my privacy obligations? Audits are educative rather than punitive. As part of the approval process, all sponsors agree to participate in audits. Sponsors have an obligation to satisfactorily respond to any audit findings within specified timeframes, as may be directed by the Department of Justice or Revenue New South Wales. Withdrawal from the WDO scheme does not necessarily remove a sponsor from being subject to audits for the period of their approval in the scheme. And remember, WDO records must be retained for at least 5 years following the completion or revocation of the WDO. Sorry about that.
Okay, so even if a sponsor has decided that they're not going to do any WDOs for a little while and they remove themselves from the scheme, they can still be audited for that period in which that they were delivering WDO.
Exactly.
And is that for up to 5 years?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, brilliant. So it doesn't sound too scary at all.
Oh no, look at it as education.
Yeah.
And it gives us the tools to further give our sponsors instruments to use to better the scheme.
The program,
yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. And also us too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We know what to focus on then in terms of...
If the nuts and bolts, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So after today's webinar, you will receive an email with links to the following resources developed by the Legal Aid WDO team and Revenue New South Wales. So this is the list, the step-by-step guide to setting up WDOs, client eligibility list, client details form, the short user's guide for the WDO self-service portal, and summary of changes to the WDO guidelines. Now, contacts for help. So, Tanya, would you like to introduce your contacts?
Definitely. So as you can see sitting there is Revenue New South Wales. So the lovely staff on the hotline. You can call them on 1300 478 879, and they will assist with the self-service portal, any general questions. And if you have any questions that you'd rather send by email, you know, in regards to your organisation, like changing admin persons or things like that, the email address is wdo@revenue.nsw.gov.au.
Okay, and also are the details for Legal Aid New South Wales WDO service. So there are 6 teams across the state. So you can call them your local WDO service, or you can email the WDO general email, which is wdo@legalaid.nsw.gov.au, and we can provide training and support for sponsors, and we can give specialist fine advice also. So that's how you can get in touch with us. Now, just to wrap up, we'll now take some time to answer the questions that have come through during the webinar. So if you would like to ask a question but you haven't yet, please feel free to type it in now. Lauren is busy tapping away. We'll answer as many as possible in the time that we have remaining. Don't forget, you will be receiving an email after we finish with a survey about the webinar, so we really appreciate your feedback. Also, you'll receive an email with links to a number of resources. Contact us if you would like anything clarified. Don't forget, there are handouts that are attached to the webinar that you can download also. Also, in 2018, just a reminder that we are having these webinars monthly, plus extra topics once a quarter. And I think the next topic, I don't know if I can say too much, but I think Linda from our Wollongong team is going to be working on a webinar that will look at direct and refer activities, which we get a lot of those questions.
Yeah,
too,
and we have one now too.
Do we?
Kirsty.
Okay.
So training conducted by another organisation but ran on site at the approved WDO sponsor location. Is this refer or direct?
Well, that's a good question.
It is. So it would be direct, okay, because the training is being conducted at the WDO sponsor location, okay. So, and another question here is the own style of an activity timesheet. Is this okay? Of course it is, as long as it is being signed by the caseworker for the activity hours conducted, and you keep this as proof of your documents, just in case of auditing.
Yeah.
So these are some great questions being asked here, Kirsty. Is there any more out there, Lauren?
I'm just having a look through.
I think the direct and the refer for the next nuts and bolts will be a great advantage for a lot of our sponsors and caseworkers out there. And if you don't know if you are a direct or referral organisation, then you need to speak to your administrative person.
Yeah.
To just to see.
Oh, so we've just had a question about whether or not we will have been recording these sessions. The answer is yes. I have to have something to show my mum at the end of the day. So yeah, we are going to hopefully be uploading these onto YouTube, and we will send out the links.
And Kirsty, do you know, just if people are having trouble downloading the PDFs, what do they do to download them? You just click on them? Yeah,
they should be able to just click on the form. So when they go onto their control panel down onto handouts, there's a little arrow, what's it, sideways triangle. If they click on that, that should open up the 3 handouts, which are client details form, eligibility checklist, and WDO timesheet. So if they click on them, that should open up the PDF, or they can should be able to right click and save.
Can you girls, Tanya and Kirsty, can you just speak a little bit about referring out activities? I'm getting a lot of questions through about if an organisation is approved but they're not providing the activity, they're referring a client out for, say, some volunteer work to St Vincent de Paul's. How can they have that included on the WDO?
Okay, so again, you must be an organisation that has been approved to refer out for that client activity. And like I said before, if you're not sure whether your organisation is able to refer out, you need to ask your administrative person to do that, okay? So, and if you are an approved, then to refer out for, say, voluntary unpaid work, you would need the timesheets between the two organisations, okay, and signed off by the case manager. Now, if your organisation would like to be able to refer out for that activity, then your organisation would need to complete a variation form, and you can, and it's an online jot form via our website. Okay, you would need to complete that.
All right, thanks for that answer, Tanya. Probably one last one, girls. Just in terms of other WDO approved sponsors, is there a list anywhere out there on the website?
Yes, there certainly is, Lauren. There is a listing on our website, okay, where you can actually go to www.revenue.nsw.gov.au. You can either type in WDO sponsor in the search toolbar, or just hover over your fines and fees, and then it'll be the second last one in the box, business sponsors. Okay.
Because it has moved recently, hasn't it?
Oh, yes, they put it under the overdue fines. It's a little bit hard, but if you just type in WDO sponsors, it will take you. It is a hyperlink that you will have to click on, and then it's a listing by region, and then when you expand it out, then it is by suburb.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will keep answering your questions. So if you do have any, please send them through. We hope to see you at our next bonus topic later in the year. But thank you for joining us.
And we will endeavour to answer all questions that have been listed, because Paul Lauren's typing away here and we still have several questions to answer. So don't worry, we will answer every question. And as we said before, that the attendees will receive a copy of them.
Brilliant. All right, thank you everyone.